If you walked out of your job tomorrow, what would actually leave with you? Not your title, not your email address, not the tools that you use. I'm talking about how you think, the shortcuts, the order you do things in, the judgment calls you make without even realizing it. And quick note, when I say future-proof your retirement, I'm not talking about investing advice at all. I'm talking about turning your work experience into tool-agnostic digital assets that you can sell. Because most people don't realize how valuable that experience is until it disappears. So today I'm going to show you how to turn it into assets that can keep working for you even when you're done working. And when you test ideas the right way, those decisions don't disappear when the job does. Now, in a minute, I'm going to give you a simple example you can steal, like an HR onboarding that would work for any company, not just yours. Quick thing before we get into it, if you're building a second income after work, or you're trying to create something stable that doesn't require you to be on all the time, be sure to subscribe so you can find your way back here. I post videos every week that simplify the process of making and selling digital products. Now, let's make future-proof mean something real here. When most people say future-proof, they mean predicting future trends, tools, or platforms. That is not what I'm talking about. Future-proofing in this context means preserving what still works even when the tools change. It means capturing decision logic, the part of your job that goes like this. Okay, if this happens, do that. If this is true, check this next. Before you touch anything, make sure this is done first. That's the stuff I'm talking about, because that is what normally lives only in your head, and that is what normally disappears. So if you're over 40, you've probably thought this at least once. What are they going to do when I retire? Not because you think you're a genius or that you're irreplaceable, but because you know that you are the one person that everyone comes to for this one specific thing. You know what breaks. You know what causes problems later. You know the order. That's not generic knowledge, that's experience. And that kind of experience is exactly what can become a digital asset. Now stay with me here, because this is where people overcomplicate it and accidentally talk themselves out of something valuable. Here's the mistake most people make. They hear digital product and their brain goes straight to a course, a program, a membership, a big system. And then they think, well, I don't have time for that. And they're right, but that's not the only kind of digital asset. A better question is, what do I do at work that feels obvious to me now, but it used to be hard? Or even better, what do people come to me for? Because the things that feel obvious to you are often the exact things that other people struggle with. And that experience can be packaged into something small and usable. Not a transformation or a life overhaul, a tool someone can use, a checklist, a decision tree, a flow chart, a guide that prevents a mistake. That's the shift. And there's another reason this matters right now. A huge number of people are retiring, and when they do, organizations don't just lose employees, they lose institutional memory. That's stuff that was never documented. The thinking behind the process, the judgment calls. That loss is expensive, which is why preserved experience is becoming more valuable, not less. This isn't about trends, it's about timing. There's a quiet mass exit happening, and the most valuable knowledge usually disappears with it. So if you're turning yours into assets now, you're early. So quick pause. I want you to actually think about this. Comment one sentence. What do people come to you for? Even if you think it's boring, especially if you think it's boring, because that's usually where the value is hiding. And yes, I do read every comment. Now let's talk about what kind of digital assets work best, because digital asset can sound like you need a whole business plan. Spoiler alert, you do not. The most reliable digital assets solve one moment, one stuck point, one decision. Think about the moment someone pauses and thinks, what do I do next here? Or what do I choose here? What am I about to mess up? Those moments are stressful because they require a decision, not more information. Big courses try to solve everything. One-moment solutions solve the part that actually stops people. And that's why they sell. And that's why they get used. People aren't always shopping for a new identity. They're shopping for relief. Small doesn't mean cheap. Small means laser focused. And focused is what makes something actually valuable. Now let me show you what this looks like in a real job example, because this is where you're going to immediately see how you could do this with your own experience. Okay. If you think about HR onboarding a new employee, okay, tools are going to change over time. Software is going to change. Forms are going to change. But the outcome never changes. Every new hire still needs the same core things to happen, right? They need access. They need expectations. They need the right information at the right time. They need to not make mistakes that create a mess later on. What lives in the HR person's head isn't the paperwork. It's the logic. What happens first? What can wait? What always causes confusion? What breaks if you skip this step? For example, there's always some version of, before you send them anything, confirm this. If they're remote, do this differently. If they don't have access by day 2, this is going to impact that. Now, that is decision logic, and decision logic is evergreen. That's what you preserve. So instead of creating a giant training program about HR onboarding, you create a simple asset like an onboarding checklist that prevents common mistakes, a day 1 decision tree, a flow chart that shows the order of operations. And that is future-proof because the tool might change, but the thinking still works. Now, here's the part people either overcomplicate or completely misunderstand. AI. AI is not the value. AI is the assistant that helps you get the job done faster. Okay, here's the fastest way I've found to do this. Turn on the chat feature in ChatGPT or whatever AI you like to use and talk to your AI assistant as if you're training your replacement at work. Seriously, pretend someone is taking over your role tomorrow and you're explaining what matters. You would say something like, here's the order this needs to happen in. Here's what people always forget. And here's what causes problems later. And here's what I double check every single time. You're not trying to sound smart. You're transferring your real experience. Then you ask AI to format it. Turn this into a checklist. Turn this into a flow chart. Turn this into a decision tree. And then this part matters. You tweak the outcome. You refine it. You clarify the wording. You make it accurate. You make it sound like you. AI will help you extract what was stuck in your head. That's the big win. And honestly, once you do it this way, you start seeing your own experience differently. You realize you're not just doing tasks, you're making decisions other people don't know how to make yet. Now, don't skip this next part because this is where people accidentally build something that depends on constant hustle, and then they wonder why it feels exhausting. The third strategy is what makes this retirement friendly: ownership. A lot of people think the biggest risk is not having an audience, but the bigger risk is building on something you don't control. Algorithms change, platforms change, your energy changes, life changes. If your income depends on constant visibility, that's fragile. So the goal is not reach. The goal is ownership. Owning your digital asset, owning a way to reach people directly, and owning something that still works if you take a break. That's the future-proof part. You don't need to post every day. You don't need to be everywhere. You need a clear path. Someone finds you, they get help, they can come back later. That's how small digital assets compound quietly over time. And this is where I can point you to something practical. If you're watching this thinking, okay, I get it, but I need a step-by-step path to turn my experience into an actual product, That's exactly why I created my shortcut to selling your first digital product. It's designed to help you take what you already know, shape it into a small digital product, and get it out of your head and into a format that you can list for sale. No overbuilding, no spiraling, no pretending you have to start a whole brand new life to do this. I'll link that for you down below if you want the structure. And if you don't, you can still use everything in this video and do it your own way. Let's look at this in the simplest way possible. Future-proofing your retirement is not about predicting the future. It's about preserving what doesn't change. Your decision-making, your shortcuts, your order of operations. When you turn that experience into digital assets, it stops disappearing when you stop working, and it becomes something you own. And it can help a lot of future yous. So here's what I want you to do next. Answer this question in the comments. What is the thing you know how to do that other people always seem to mess up? That's your digital asset hiding in plain sight. And if you want more videos that teach this step by step, subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and it helps me keep making practical videos for people building after work. All right, here's to your success, and I'll see you next week.